10 o'clock, so we will go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. So we will start with introductions. I'm Debbie Nedenrip. I work here at CWSD. I am the Water Resource Specialist 2, and Ed roped me into doing a lot of FEMA business, and so one of those things is the Mapping Information Platform. So we're going to go ahead and start. I wanted to introduce Holly, but she's so new, we don't have her camera set up on her computer. So come on in here, Holly, so we can see you. So this is Holly Farnham. She is our new senior watershed clerk. So she is going to be listening in on her computer. So I am really excited to have her on board. And so at this point, if we could, I'd like to go ahead and have everybody introduce themselves. I'll go ahead and call on you, and if you would take yourself off mute, and if you have a camera, turn your camera on, and then we can go ahead and get a picture of who you are. All right, Ian.
Good morning. My name is Ian Mahaffey. I work for Lumos.
Oh, can't quite hear you.
Oh. Hear me now? Volume?
Of course. It is not working.
I can hear him fine, Debbie.
Well,
Oh.
The screen lights up, but we can't hear you. Maybe it's mine. Oh, yeah, it's probably me. Okay, try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Helps if I turn on my sound.
Yeah, that helps.
It was me, not you.
My name is Ian Mahaffey, and I work for Lumos and Associates in Reno, in the Reno office. And my background is mainly land development, but a good portion is water resources as well.
Wonderful. And then the CWSD is Katrina, and she's listening in the background. And then we have Ed James. If you would introduce yourself, Ed.
Hi there, Ed James, General Manager for the Carson Water Subconservancy District, and I'm listening in to see what Debbie has to say.
Yeah, he likes to make sure that I don't take science and create science fiction. Alrighty, so then we have Brian.
I'm Ron Riley. I work for Terraphase Engineering. I'm a GIS analyst, and I'm excited for the presentation.
Welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
All right, so Andrea.
Hi, I'm Andrea Jacobsma. I'm an environmental engineer with Cardno, and I specialize in hydrology and hydraulics.
Good morning, Andrea.
Morning. Thanks for putting this on.
Yes, well, I don't know. You might not thank me later. Okay, Erica. If you want to go ahead and go back to your computer.
Hello, I'm Erica. I am a new employee at Lumos and Associates, and I have a background in geology, geomorphology, and hydrology.
Sweet. That's great. All right, Karin.
Hi there, this is Karin Peternell. I work for Michael Baker in the Reno office, and I've done work with CWSD in the past. Hi, Deb. And
Hi, Karin.
I want to be able to talk intelligently about the MIP process, since it's always brought up in these FEMA projects. So I'd like to understand more about it. So I'm really happy that you're putting this on.
Thank you, Karin. Shalini, hopefully I got that right. If not, I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Shalini. I'm from HDR Engineering. For last 16 years I've been there. I have 2 master's degree in water resources engineer. So yeah, I've been in Reno for a while now.
Wonderful, welcome.
Thanks.
Keith? Keith?
Good morning. Hi, this is Keith Weaver from HDR. I'm a water resources engineer as well. And I have been doing some submittals. So I definitely have been going through a learning curve and expect to keep going through that curve.
Yeah, you're living the dream, Keith.
Definitely.
Mujahid?
Good morning, Debbie. It's Mujahid with Michael Baker, H&H project manager, currently working with CWSD on the web access toolkit.
Exciting. I'm excited about that. Cami? Cami Hodges? Did you want to introduce yourself? You don't have to, but this is your big chance. All right, we'll go back to Cami. So we have Jeff.
Hello, I'm Jeff Weigel at JUB Engineers. Been working on some flood projects around here in Northern Nevada and want to learn more about the MIP process.
Wonderful. Well, with that, we will go ahead and get started. So bear with me while I share my screen. We'll see if the joy of project management, or the joy of, we're living the dream here. Okay, let me start my PowerPoint. Okay, so, oh, come on. This is a little tricky. So I want to make sure you can see my actual presentation, so let me share this one and see if you could just let me know, because of course, once you share, you cannot tell if you've got the PowerPoint. So are you seeing the actual presentation or the speaker view?
Presentation is showing.
Perfect, thank you. And why is it not, hold on, we got to go back because it's on the wrong slide. Oh, I'll just cheat. Okay, can you see floodplain management in the Carson River watershed?
Yes.
That's what I'm seeing.
Wonderful, thank you. Sorry about that. It's so weird that with Zoom you cannot see what you're presenting. So today we are just going to I'm going to just give a brief introduction and talk about why the MIP matters. So I thought I would start out by just talking about Carson, talk about floodplain management in the Carson River watershed. So for those of you who may not know, the Carson River watershed consists of 6 counties in 2 states. So starting from the upper watershed, there is Alpine County in California, Douglas County, Carson City, Lyon County, Churchill County, and Story County in our watershed. And CWSD, at this point, all 6 counties are members of CWSD, and we are governed by a board of local officials from each county. Appoints those officials, and then they also appoint some agricultural representatives. So the way CWSD kind of breaks out our work is through these different areas, and this comes from CWSD's stewardship plan. And so floodplain conservation and management is actually part of that, and then there's these other tasks. So of course, today we're going to focus on floodplain management, and I added lots of good flood pictures because we all like flood pictures. So CWSD, as I mentioned, had the stewardship plan, and then in 2007 our watershed program manager wrote the first floodplain management plan. And at this point, it's now been adopted by all 6 counties in the watershed. It provides community rating system points to Carson City, Douglas County, and Story County. And then it has 8 mitigation strategies and 48 implementation actions that it suggests. And this, of course, is the 1997 flood. And so these strategies were put in place before CWSD started getting CTP funding. So, but that led to CWSD did become a cooperating technical partner in 2005. And in 2012, CWSD signed the FEMA Risk Map Charter, and MAP is actually an acronym for Mapping, Assessment, and Planning. And so we participate in that. And if you look at CWSD's website on the Floodplain Management page, it has the link to that. This, of course, is Douglas County. So, hold on. We don't want to get to the exciting stuff yet. CWSD, in our CTP projects, we apply for the grants through FEMA Region 9. And the way that CWSD implements these projects is that CWSD acts as the project manager, meeting facilitator. We also do outreach. And then the county floodplain manager and their staffs serve as the technical leads for projects. So a big thing to know is that the mapping activity statement, which is, it's the document that guides everything that we have to do with FEMA. The contract, we have to live by the terms of the mapping activity statement. And unfortunately, we don't get to put in what we want, the nerve. FEMA gives us the money, so they get to pick what we have to do. So the standards, this is actually an excerpt out of Mapping Activity Statement 12, which is our 12th round of funding. This is what is in our contract. And so our mapping products have to adhere to these standards. And that's really important for contractors that do our flood studies to understand, because the bottom line is we have to put everything in the MIP, and it has to go in according to their standards. And in addition to that, there's management standards. So the 2 CFR 200, so that's the Code of Federal Regulations, that kind of determines things like procurement and how we go through our budgeting process and all those kinds of rules that we have to follow. And then in addition, starting with Mapping Activity Statement 10, so 10 is closing out later in 2022, either June or September. Mapping Activity 11 is closing out in 2023, and we just were funded for Mapping Activity 12, and that's going through 2024. So with these mapping activity statements, we now have to turn in and live by a communication plan. And with Mapping Activity 12, we now have to create a little document per project that just kind of lists everybody's names on the project team, from FEMA, CWSD, the county technical leads, and the contractor that is eventually selected for the projects that we have. And of course, with every little plan that they give us, we now have to keep track to tell them, yes, we had the meetings, this is when we had them. If we do public outreach, we have to let them know. Here, I'll change it to a more interesting picture. If we do public meetings, we have to keep track of that. And then, like the new part on the QA/QC, we just have to say, okay, it was reviewed, say, by Carson City this date and by CWSD, and we kind of have to check those boxes. So with every little, every time they give us a little bit more money, it seems we have a little bit more to tell them about. So at this point, I will say that we have several projects we have done. So we have done several physical map revisions, and we're currently working on the Carson River below Lahontan. And then we have several area drainage master plans that we are have done, and we actually have 3 RFPs up on our website that are for 2 area drainage master plans in Carson City, Southeast Carson City and East Carson City. And then we have 1 ADMP in Story County, which is for Story County and 6 Mile Canyon. So in addition to ADMPs, we also have several letter of map revisions going on right now. We have Clear Creek and Smelter Creek going on. Moss 12 actually doesn't have a LOMAR or a physical map revision in it. And we also do flood awareness and community outreach. And so this gets back to our the community outreach as it relates to contractors, starting with Moss 10 and the development of our communication plan. Our projects now include needing to do a public kickoff meeting to tell folks what we're going to do as far as the study goes. We also have to send a formal letter to the community to let them know that if we're doing some mapping product. Oh, sorry, I just noticed there's something in the chat. Let me look at that real quick. Oh, just yes, you can hear me. Okay, good, Keith, thanks. So with that community outreach plan, we have to let people know, yeah, we're doing the public kickoff. We send the community board a letter saying we're going to do this study in this area, and it has and it's using this model, so that's a requirement. And I think that only applies to the physical map revisions and the LOMARs. But we do try to kind of keep the counties abreast of what we're doing. And then the second part of our outreach for our projects is that we do a results meeting. So we just recently had one for the Ruinstrath Area Drainage Master Plan, and basically I will just say Douglas County loves their public meetings, and the contractor did a really great job. We probably had about 50 people there, and they basically show the before and after of you know, what the flooding was like. So obviously for the area drainage master plans, it's not a regulatory product, so they show them, okay, this is what we had before if there happens to be a LOMAR, which in the Ruinstrath they had one, so they were like, okay, this is what it looks like now, but if you apply these drainage facilities and upgrade your drainage features, you know, your culverts and ditches and all that, then it shows the scenario. So then we have this public results, and then the contractor generally presents that information to CWSD and the county boards. And so so that's part of stuff we have to put into the MIP. Those are considered general tasks, so I generally do all of the general tasks, you know, keep track of all the public meetings and per project, and so at this point we have, I thought I had it in here, maybe it was on a previous sheet, but we have through the 3 MOSs we have over 45 projects. So for each project there can be anywhere from 4 to 8 tasks that I have to go in and update and then make sure all the data is put into the MIP in the correct way. So here, let me just click on this, make sure. We also have inundation maps that this is a project we did with the National Weather Service, so that's just a we also have created videos. I'm not going to, oh, nope.
Have you noticed the open land around the Carson River? It's a beautiful place to play, enjoy nature, and grow our food. But open land also does an important job. It's the river's floodplain, and it protects us from potentially devastating floods. Keeping these low-lying areas free of development, floodwaters spread out, slow down, and sink in. The open floodplain is a community asset that keeps us safe, produces our food, and offers great places to recreate. Let's work together to protect the Carson River floodplain.
All right, so that's just a little, we have 4 videos that we send, and so, and that is in Alpine County. They had an extreme mud flow. Oh, sorry, this is just a bonus slide. So that's just my little overview of CWSD and kind of give you a little background information. So now let me just pull up the other presentation, which is the MIP. So this presentation is actually Jeannie Reefer's presentation. So, and created with Chris Herod, and it was part of our onboarding process this go round. So I will just proceed. Let me just make sure I get this up, and if someone can let me know if you can see it. Hold on, let me I gotta find the stop share. Here we go. Sorry. Okay, now we're going to Okay, so can you see the presentation that says Risk Map, Increasing Resilience Together with Jeannie Reefer's name?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so the MIP stands for Mapping Information Platform and Data Management. And so I'm just going to share what FEMA shared with us and explain that background. Oh, come on. Okay, so I will just give a brief, I'm going to go through this PowerPoint and kind of add my comments. So I'm going to give a brief MIP overview, talk about the different MIP user types, the roles and responsibilities. We'll kind of breeze over the MIP studies business flow, and then I don't know, we can't really do hands-on exercises, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. So first of all, what is the MIP and what does it do? So in 2017, the MIP became the system of record. And so now, instead of sending a study to the engineering library, FEMA wants us to upload the data into the MIP. And I know that there's a few of you on here, and that's when we get back to those data capture standards. So that data capture standards little booklet that they have is basically a map of the folder structures. So when you do a project that has to go into the MIP, then it has to be formatted according to that document. And then not only that, it has to pass a metadata check and then a data check. So kind of the process is that you upload the data, you in the format they desire, and then it has to pass the metadata and then the data. And it is definitely an iterative process where you become very good friends with the regional program for the MIP, and they call them our regional black belts. Oh, sorry. So why do we care about the MIP? Well, we care because headquarters uses the MIP to determine how we're all doing. And they use it to create reports to say we're doing great. So as a tool for RMD stands for the Risk Management Directorate, the mapping activity platform is used to facilitate the investments FEMA makes in data that supports mitigation. Several years back, my husband, who sells construction equipment, worked at a company who implemented a similar database. Of course, the managers always love it, and then the minions on the ground, it creates a lot of work and time. But what it does is people at the region, project management, and headquarters can look into the MIP and see, is the project behind schedule? Is it within budget? Do we need to take action? So it's a great tool for FEMA headquarters, and it helps them to keep track of studies nationwide. I'm not going to read through all of these, but I'm just showing them to you so that you can have this presentation and kind of look over it. So this kind of describes the MIP flow life cycle, well, the risk map life cycle. So we kind of live in the data production and awareness and the risk awareness part of this risk map process. And as such, that's where the majority of our funds, well, it is where the majority of our funds go. And then once we get a project that is ready to, whether it's a physical map revision or a LOMAR, once we get to that point, then we work with the counties to help them in that process to do the notices to the public. But for the most part, we live in the data and product development and risk awareness land of the risk map life cycle. And I think it's good to know where we live. Another thing I wanted to mention, just because I like to know where things are coming down. So the funding comes through the Department of Homeland Security to FEMA. We are in the mitigation section, and then the cooperating technical partners is a part of that mitigation section. Just a little FYI. So this is kind of the process. So the project is getting set up. So right now, for example, in MOS 12, we're setting up these, they're called a purchase. Each project has multiple purchases. So so there's usually, the usual suspects are survey, topo, hydrology, hydraulics, floodplain mapping, and that's more for a study. We did learn it's not good to put in floodplain mapping if you're doing an area drainage master plan. We learned a lot about the MIP, and that is that make sure that if it's a general task, put it in as a general task, because if you say it's hydrology or hydraulics, then you have to live by those very prescribed formats to put the data in. And so once the project's in, then we have these purchases, and then each purchase has these tasks. And so I guess probably on this part, the thing I would want everybody to know as a contractor, it's really important once a business plan, you know, we've done the scoping and a business plan has been approved, and then we have a contract. It's really important to kind of have a little back and forth about what the schedule of your project will be, and what what the cost, how it's broken out, because we have to put each task into the MIP, and headquarters looks at those tasks, and what those baseline numbers do is they create the baseline for earned values. So monthly, we at CWSD have to put in how much is spent on a project and how much, where we're at, and then it generates a number. And of course, if the number is 1, that means the task is on time and at cost. If it's below, for cost, it means it's below cost, and if it's above, it's, you know, ahead of schedule, more has been spent, and then the same thing with the schedule. So in our contracts, CWSD is required to have an earned value per task of 0.92 to 1.08. And this is really important because headquarters and the region look at these numbers every month. And so if they see that you know, projects are falling more and more behind, that kind of becomes a liability for us and FEMA, and then we're not as attractive for future grants. So it's really important in the process of developing that baseline schedule and cost, not just to think about, okay, well, when is that work going to be done, but also kind of take a look at that data standards and see, okay, now how do I have to format this for the MIP? What's that process going to look like when it goes into the MIP? So, so let's just say, now moving on to the study task. So when you were logged into the MIP, a very important thing about logging into the MIP, not just anybody can do it anymore. So as a cooperating technical partner, CWSD staff had to fill out, and I wrote the name down because it's so long. We had to, so if you as a contractor are going to do work in the MIP, you have to fill out a risk analysis management system access request, otherwise known as a RAMSAR. And filling that out requires that you read the rules of behavior and that you do two very clunky trainings. One is about cybersecurity, which is by the Department of Defense, and the other one's about personally identifiable information. You have to sign away your firstborn, and then once you have done that, it seems like it takes about a month to 6 weeks. Then you get approved, and then as a contractor, you are then able to directly upload data to the MIP. And so that gets us back to the study task. So the study task is the launching point for MIP users who have been assigned a task. And so in the MIP, our contractors, and another thing that's very clunky is that if you have multiple CTPs you're working for, you still have to have specific access permission for CWSD's project. I know we have some contractors who are doing CWSD, Mojave. So even though it's a real pain, you have to have different logins and permissions per CTP. Okay, so back to your study task. So as contractors for CWSD, you have task access. And what this allows you to do is upload the data to the MIP. And so basically that process is, once you are in the MIP, then I go in and I have to assign that task to you. And then you upload them, go through the metadata. There's a big process of weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth, communication with the RPML and the MIP champions to get it uploaded, and then finally it's done. And then so for CWSD, the earned values for individual tasks, we track those. So basically that's where we go through. I will tell you that FEMA generates a report that tells us, okay, these tasks, it lists all of our tasks, all of the projects, and then the next tab lists all of the tasks within each project. And each task is assigned a score based on your invoice. So I get that report basically the third, by about the 15th of each month. So it's really helpful if you get your invoices to us by about the 10th, because then I can put in your percentage complete and the amount you've spent, and then when that report is generated, it's accurate. Otherwise, if I get it after the 15th, then it's always a month behind. So it's just kind of a little helpful thing if I know that. And so another way to get around that is when you do your when we develop the business plan and the MIP schedule, if you kind of plan for, okay, well, this organization puts out our invoices on the 16th of every month, well, then build in an extra month at the beginning so that you're not behind. And that will be really helpful for us. I know. You notice how Ed lets me do all the really super boring stuff. He gets to be the good cop and I'm the bad cop. So the studies dashboard, I was just checking to see if he was listening. The studies dashboard is used to find all information. And so this is available, I think this is available to all study users, and it shows general information about projects. You know, who's the project owner? So in this case, CWSD would be the project owner, or maybe even Carson City. And so the task is displayed as a number, and I'm not going to go through all of these. This is more for you to read through and just kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. I guess the big takeaway on these is that when you like submit a LOMAR or something like that, or a CLOMAR, you're not seeing this side of the MIP. This is a whole nother beast, and it's not pretty. So I don't know if you can see this very well, but so here's the studies dashboard, and this kind of gives you an idea. So here's the study, and then over here, I don't know if you can see my pointer, then it has the task status, and then it has its numbers about how we're doing. So then updating the MIP. So we have to do this monthly. So generally, my personal workflow is that we try to get our invoices done by about the 15th or sooner, and then we update the MIP as we go along, and then we generate those earned value reports. And yeah, it's really exciting. So I guess the thing that relates to you is that just if you are really good about developing that schedule and then updating us monthly, and it's really helpful if you let us know if you're not going to be, oh, I'm sorry, the sun is in my eyes, if you're not going to be sending an invoice, so then I know. So then here's an earned value report. This over here is the SPI, so these are all great. SPI is all one, and CPI is one. We have earned values right now that are ranging from 0.5 to 108, and so what happens when we have those is we have to report why they're low. Several of them have to do with the pandemic, and then others have to do with circumstances outside of our control, like in Churchill County, we had to wait for a plan from the Bureau of Reclamation as to how they release the water downstream of Lahontan, and so we couldn't control that. So anyway, we get those reports every month, but on every task, if it's not within the acceptable range, we have to explain why we're not at that level. And so these earned value reports, as it says, it originates in the DHS, and FEMA has to report on the project's health, and they use these reports to generate their reports to Congress. So they really love these reports, and they really like for them to be within the schedule and cost variance. Okay, so we have this complete task workflow, and I will just say this is an overview because we're not allowed to log into the MIP and show you the actual MIP. We can just tell you about it so that you understand what it looks like. But unfortunately, it's definitely one of those things that I kind of feel like the MIP was created specifically to cause engineers great weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth, because it's a very large, huge database that is not necessarily put together in a logical way. That it seems like to me they just update it and they add more features, but they don't necessarily update the data. And so it becomes very difficult to use. And I know we've had engineers who, so when you upload your metadata, there's what they call a MetaMan checker in the MIP. And so you put it through that and it checks it, and then it tells you these things and it says, oh, it's fine. And then you actually submit it and then check it in the MIP metadata checker, and then it says it's not fine. And so I know we had one engineer who went down a rabbit hole trying to figure out why in the world are these two things different. And I am not an engineer. I just know that there are mysteries of the MIP you will never understand. So you just have to work through them and don't waste your time on things like why MetaMan and the other MIP thing doesn't work right. Anyway, on to the task flow. So basically, I'll just kind of try to hit the high points. So basically, the task is created by our RPML, which is our regional MIP project manager, and then it's assigned to one or more users. So basically, for a given task, it would be assigned to CWSD as the earned value, and then it would be assigned to the contractor who would then do the task. And so the assigned user, so when you log in, you will see the tasks that apply to you. And then you can go on the task and you can work on that task and then save it or submit it. However, if you submit it and you did not do it right, you'll get one email that says you've submitted this task, and then a half second later you'll get one that says this project has gone from submitted to in progress, which I don't like to get those. Okay. So this is kind of the validation flow. So it's submitted, it goes to the region, and then the PTS. Then if it passes, it moves forward, then it goes to the independent QA QC, and then the purchase is complete. Of course, if it doesn't pass, then it goes back to the data capture, which from what I've seen, you go around here about 5 or 6 times per task, and then it goes through. So it's kind of an iterative process. So this is kind of who does what. So the region, which is the regional project manager for the MIP, or the MIP champ, purchases and creates the tasks. And basically the purchase allocates that funding for a given CTP, and once that's allocated in there, we're good to go. That money is then allocated from FEMA to the region, and then from the region to the CTP. So I do know that the sooner you get those purchases in the MIP, the better. And then the data capture task is submitted by the mapping partner, who is CWSD, or our contractor on behalf of CWSD. Then it's validated by the MIP champion or their black belt. And then once it's validated, the interim independent QA QC is done. And then once the independent QA QC is done, it is marked, I mark it as complete, and then we're done. And so here's a little cap. The basic workflow for tracking tasks. So this is, I go into the MIP, I click on one task, and then type it in. And this one, of course, is completely done, and so you can save and submit this. And then it's marked as complete. So I'm going to give you guys this spreadsheet so you can read through it. And then, of course, for all the data development tasks in the workflow, it has to be QA QC'd. And so, and then the part here where it says the CTP shall perform an impartial review of technical scientific, that's the part where we have that QA QC plan, that we have to check those boxes and make sure that the technical lead and Ed who are our PEs, sign off. So, and these are important documents that I definitely encourage you to look at before you, in the process of getting a contract and writing a proposal, is so that you understand there's some time associated with it. And this is some tips. Metadata is tied to purchase geography. And so this is a big problem when it does not match. So these are very helpful tips. I have gone round and round with FEMA, and then it turns out it was hidden in invalid characters. And especially on the hidden characters, how do you know they're hidden? So that's something that's really important. So the next issues, inferior or complex uploads increase. This DVT means data validation tool runtime. So they have some best practices here for when you upload. And then purchase geography initially provided impacts contractor submittals. So it's really important to coordinate between us as the CTP and contractors to make sure we've got that information correct. And editing that purchase geography, you have to put in a MIP help ticket. And I guess the thing I would say, if you're running into problems with the MIP, put in a MIP help ticket sooner rather than later, because otherwise, again, we don't want you to spend countless hours figuring out a problem, and a lot of times it's some weird janky thing. And so if you just send in that MIP help ticket, they will be like, oh, you need to do this. So I just encourage that you do the MIP help tickets often. So, and then this goes some important questions. Why did my data submittal get rejected? The mapping activity states data hasn't been submitted to the MIP. Poor folder structure. So when the data is validated, that goes back to that data capture standards. You have to set up your folder structure according to those data capture standards. And if there's empty folders, you have to put in a README file that says there's nothing in this folder, or we don't have it. It's really important to get those required spatial folders submitted. And we do the project narratives for the general tasks, and then you as the contractor would do the project narrative for, say, hydraulics for the Churchill County physical map revision. And then also, because models in the project narrative, models listed in the project narrative were not submitted. So you kind of want to make sure. I think it's important too to note that if you're referring to another mapping product or an effective map, to list that. Okay, I don't know if we can really do these exercises because we cannot go into the MIP. And so I guess what I would say is this part starts once you sign a contract with us, and then FEMA, then you do that Ramsar, and then from there FEMA is going to do an additional training. They are planning to do their MIP training, which will, I think they're shooting for January. So the idea is that I believe CWSD hopes to have our contracts in place by January, and then shortly thereafter the region is going to do the MIP training. So you know, at this point you can't access the MIP portal until you have that, and I'm not allowed to show you mine because, you know, you might steal some personally identifiable information. they are careful, and I am glad, because with all these cyber attacks, we don't want to be the agency that the Russians use to take down the whole United States infrastructure. So having said that, we'll look a little bit at these. So here's the workbench, and then all these tabs come up. You go to this study task. I always click active, and then this case number, or you can search for it, and then it pulls up your task. And then when you, I don't worry about customizing my display. You can do that if you like. I like the way that it has the case number. It's already set up like this, so it's pretty easy to use. And so this is what I do when I assign you to a task. I pick this task, I click assign. Your name has been put in there because your RAMs are passed with flying colors, and so then I type in your name, then I have to type in CWSD Region 9, and then I can assign that to you. If I want to work on the task, or if you want to work on the task, more importantly, you click on the task, and then you click work on task, and then it pulls that task up, and then it scroll down, and you'll find the places that it tells you to. Oh, this is the assigned task. This is what I do. And back to this page, you pull up this page, and that's where you update the tasks and upload information. And then this is, real exciting stuff. I track tasks by going to this track task tab. I look for my case number, and then per case number it pulls up 5 to 8 tasks, and then I go through, I look at your invoice, I look at what your percentage complete is, what your dollars spent are, and then that is how our report is generated for the month. And so this is what it looks like to actually update. Oh, it's gray because, like any program, if it's gray, you can't do anything with it. And you cannot put in an actual end date until the project has been, the metadata has passed, the project has been validated, the QA/QC has been done, and then I can put in the end date, save it, and mark it as complete. I will just say we have things in there that we're still, so Carson Valley had the first 2D floodplain model using HECRAS, and the process has been very iterative. So we started, there are things that are in the MIP from that study from 2016 that we're still hammering out. So I have projects as far back as from 2016 in there. So, and I can't do the live demonstration. So that's, I know, disappointing as far as what I can say about the MIP before you actually have MIP access. So with that, I will stop sharing the screen. And does anyone have any questions?
Debbie, this is Mitch.
Hi, Mitch. Yeah, this is a glossed over version, huh?
Right. Something you might mention is the data size limitations on the MIP and some of the challenges there. As we move into this two-dimensional world and this, computers are getting much more capable. I think it's about a 2 gigabyte limit on submitting data to the MIP.
Right. Let me.
That is something that is a challenge sometimes.
Well, and I definitely think it is, and it's super frustrating for us and for you, and it definitely contributes to. It definitely contributes to frustration because FEMA definitely wants us as the CTP and you as a contractor to do everything you can to get it into the MIP. And it becomes a real pain to do that. In theory, they're supposed to have that. I'm opening up a project here. Let me just open up a task. So in theory, when you as a contractor, here I'm going to work on this task, there are a few different, and they will go into this more in the actual training, which so they have a managed upload, which is done by Aspera, which in theory is supposed to, so IBM Aspera Connect. So in theory, you are supposed to be able to upload more than that, but it takes a while. I know that our area drainage master plans, they've had some success uploading the data, and I can't even upload it to the FTP side of our contractor who's doing the web access system, because it's like one folder is like 18 gigabytes. So I do know it has the ability to do that, but it is very moody and often doesn't work. But one of the things that we have to do, we can't just, like as a CTP, we can't say, well, it didn't work, so we're just going to send it to you. We have to go back and forth with our FEMA project manager and kind of go through everything and all their suggestions to try to get it uploaded before they will give the go-ahead for us to actually send it to the engineering library. They, I guess, so many projects and the data was getting lost in the engineering library that the MIP is their solution. But back to your comment, Mitch, like all federal government things, the MIP is the last, and FEMA is the last to update their computers. So as the engineers, you're working on the latest and greatest software, and a lot of the process ends up being one that the FEMA software that is slow and clunky has to catch up. And so that creates, I think, a lot of that weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth. Does that sound like an accurate portrayal of that, Mitch?
That's probably generous. There are some tears involved and
swearing, and of course after hours alcohol. But yeah, it's definitely a process, and we had no idea as the CTP when they told us in 2017, okay, now you have to upload all this stuff to the MIP. We had no idea what they were talking about, and so it's been quite a process for us to learn. And you know, I will say I'm not an engineer, but I'm more of a process person who kind of understands the process. But that's where talking with your MIP black belt, your region person, can be really helpful.
Yeah, I may add in here, Debbie. Excuse me. One of the things that the MIP, because we are required to follow the MIP, it's important that you have some knowledge of it. A lot of engineering firms will do flood mapping and understand that, but the formatting is critical. And that's why if you look at RFPs that we send out, we do require entities to know something about the MIP. And this is hopefully give you a little understanding, but when you are considering grants with CTP funding, you really need to make sure that you have a grasp of what you're going to be required to input on a MIP, because that does take time. It also takes a lot of time on our staff as we do this. So it's important as we move forward that you have an understanding of it. This was just an introductory to it. But if you have a chance through other programs, or we may try to find other ways to give you more details, but that is a critical element of overall studies when you start dealing with CTP funding.
Right. So, and I know that at FMA I really pushed for a really boring and more comprehensive MIP presentation, because I think as contractors, it's the more efficient you can get and the more experience you get, then you're able to be more effective in the MIP, and then of course it takes less of your time and less money for us. So I think that's about it. Any more questions or comments?
Hi, Debbie. Question for you. That managed upload option you mentioned, I was trying to upload a larger data set and I couldn't get anything to come up. I tried a couple different browser programs and I would click on the option to use that, and I assume something's supposed to pop up. I don't know if you've run into, maybe there's a pop-up blocker I had that I needed to disable or something.
So that should be the IBM Aspera Connect, and I do know that you have to download it onto your computer and have it in there. Usually, okay, so I'm opening it right now on mine. I can't show it to you, of course, because I signed my life away. And it's very janky, I will say that. The first thing I would always do, like, try that, and then if it doesn't work, put in a ticket to MIP help, and then if it doesn't work, email the black belt in the RPML, which is Jeannie and Rosemary at this point, and say, okay, I'm doing this. And a lot of times you'll get an email back and they'll say, oh, the Aspera is down right now. And you're like, oh, okay, thanks. But I wouldn't try too many times without contacting them first. Because I've had luck with it at times, uploading, you know, like hydrology or hydraulics, where it's like, oh, this just worked perfectly. And then other times you're tearing your hair out and you can't get it to work for the life of you. So all I can say is use the MIP help desk. Don't try to figure it out on your own, because it will just drive you nuts.
Okay, that's good advice. Thanks.
Yeah.
Debbie, I might just share my experience, because I did go back and forth quite a bit with MIP help on that. It ended up being, for us at least, that it was unchecking the ActiveX filtering on Internet Explorer, allowing Aspera to connect through our firewall and making sure we were disconnected from our VPN. So you could try some of those things, and then hopefully they should be familiar with it, since we did go back and forth quite a bit with that issue as well.
Right. That's a good tip. Thank you, Andrea.
Yeah.
You definitely, you and Brandon lived in the trenches of the MIP for quite some time. You were our first program that they were like, oh, and we have to put that data into the MIP. So thank you for bearing with us. With that, are there any other questions or comments?
I have a question. It's just kind of a general one. If you're like very new and just starting out with the MIP, what's like a good place to start? Would it be just looking at that data capture standards?
Yeah, I would say so. So I will send the my PowerPoint, which has all those links. I will send that out. So probably it'd be a good idea if everybody puts your email addresses in the MIP, because I don't think I have all of you. And then I can send you out my presentation, and in that, on that page that said standards, it has a link to those standards. And then also, if you just type in FEMA data capture standards, Google will take you right to that document, which is the most recent is the February 2019. And you can look at that. Another one in there is the metadata profiles. That's really helpful to understand how those are. Another helpful thing is to just ask the region for a template for whatever you're uploading. So whether it's hydraulic or metadata, say, hey, do you have a successful template? And sometimes that can be a great starting point. So I think I have a couple templates. I can put that in the email. Let me write this down. Metadata and folder template. Okay, any other questions or comments? Ed, do you want to finish it up with some glorious statement? Oh, let me grab his attention.
So I was in another office.
Oh, okay.
No, I think you covered it. Again, this is just to give you a background as you move forward. If you are applying for future grants or projects from CWSD, make sure you mention that if you have never worked with the MIP, that you did attend this workshop, so we can at least give you some credit in that evaluation. So thank you for your time and have a good day.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and that's it for this.
Thanks, Debbie.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks all.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Debbie.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.